Today we're going to be doing a visual cinematic breakdown of one of my latest videos. So let's just get right into it. So I'm going to apply a grid so that I can explain to you guys any of my positioning choices. Quick disclaimer, this will not be in technical terms. So if you're looking for a technical breakdown, this is not it. But when you hear what I have to say, you'll understand, like, you'll be able to tie together what technical terms or what technical rules and all these things that I'm actually applying here. All right, first things first. My intention with this was to have like my eyes linger around the top horizontal line of the grid. That was my goal, but it actually worked out better than I thought because my eyes didn't really stay there. It also wouldn't have been realistic because I wouldn't have had much like headspace at that point. But the intention with this specific shot was to have the left side of the grid to be like more of an empty space and for me to possess the middle and the right a lot. I wanted it to really only be me and be me. But I wanted the right side of the grid to show me coming in and then embodying and like taking up all of the space, to also kind of have like this closeness, but also kind of like maybe want you to see like what else is going on that right side, like where are you coming from, what is going on, what is this. It's kind of like what I really want to embody there. If you're wondering why you can't hear the audio, it's because you're on the visual cinematic breakdown and not the audio breakdown. So make sure you head over to that if you want to check that out. Or if you just want to see the video in its entirety, check that out too. We're going to pause it right here. Now for this next scene that I did right here, I wanted to do a few things. I want to get into the other things later, but right now I'm going to focus on this one thing. I really wanted to create a shape in me, because that's just one thing that I like that people do in different cinematic videos, films, shorts, whatever it may be, is creating that shape. So there's negative space on the left side of the grid and there's negative space on the right side of the grid, and I am directly in the center. And then there's something that is bordering me to showcase that I'm in the center and there's nothing else to look at and nothing else is going to take your attention away from me because I'm drawing your attention to me, right? So on top of that, let me let it progress so I can explain a little bit more. All right, here. So I did do a few test runs before I shot this specific shot. I really wanted me to be in the center and for at least my eyes to reach the first horizontal line in the grid, so that it kind of like creates this bedroom, like it shows the scenery of this is the bedroom, and it's not like I didn't want it to be intense on me. I wanted it to be like invading but not too invading. Okay, so we're going to pause this right here. I did two additional things. I was trying my best to maintain my body being in that vertical image, what would you call it? Picture. That vertical, that rectangle picture right there behind me. I really, really wanted to stay in front of that because I thought it was like pretty cool. Like I felt like this shot was like really cool because it was like a shape and a shape and a shape. Like there was just a lot of shapes. And in this scenario, it wasn't a bad thing. And I don't know if it is a bad thing, but shit, it's my choice. So first, there was one thing that I did that I didn't want to happen. And I just couldn't 100% get it to where I wanted it to be. Now, when I opened the door, I wanted the door to directly stop at the edge of the left side of the frame, meaning that you could still see the edges of the door, like that opening. I wanted it to kind of like be a guide, you know, I wanted it to be like a line. And I wasn't able to do that because I also had to figure out the me saying my lines part and the doing the thing. So there was that. And I want to make sure I was in that vertical, I want to make sure I was in that rectangle picture. And then I love that I had the bathroom shape there too, another rectangle. So it's like a frame and a frame and a frame. But outside of what's outside of me in that frame is also drawing you again directly to me because I'm standing directly in front of this image, this picture. And I think one thing that I would have done differently is kind of maybe tad bit adjusted the rectangle image on the wall and kind of made those colors pop a little bit more, just so that it kind of like draws a little bit more attention to me, like directly, I would say. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, we understand the framing there. We understand the framing there. Got me centered. That was great. Keep me centered where I want it to be. Okay. You see how, like, let's go back a second. Okay, so you see how the door is right here? I kind of wanted the door to be right there. Like, this is what I would have loved instead of it being, actually, no, wait. I would have loved the door to be right here. Because it kind of is like that line. If not there, then a little bit more in the camera in a way. But just to kind of like draw that line to me. All right, let's continue. All right, let's go back for a second. Okay, so this shot, I for sure was like, okay, I really want this. I'm very, very specific on this, right? So this shot right here, I really wanted to keep the red light in there because I want it to be clear of where the light is coming from. So the motivation of the light, as well as if you guys can see on the grid, on the right side of the frame is a jacket or a shirt, whatever it could be. It's a clothing. On the left side of the frame, it's another piece of clothing. I will say I was kind of being a perfectionist to an extent where I really wanted those items to make a complete line, but the clothing was like a tad bit like like it kind of had some manipulation to it where like it kind of was like leaning its own way or curving its own way. And I wasn't 100% a fan of that. So I did actually like this. This is the best shot that I actually shot outside of that. And also I want to point out the one thing that I learned is to always kind of like cut the clip on an action. So you'll kind of see me doing that throughout this is you'll see me open the door and I open the door and it's still like a motion versus a stop, you know? I guess it would feel a little more natural. But that's just a choice that I made just because that's something that I've learned. So you see how I'm walking into frame here and I'm still walking into frame here. One thing I would note is you don't know where I'm coming from. So let's say the bed was actually pretty far back. It doesn't matter the distance because it still shows I'm traveling. The logistics of how far I've actually made it, that part is, you know, the viewer won't understand that. Here, my first creative choice here, in regards to this specific type of shot, is I really wanted this ottoman to possess the entire frame of the video. Like I want it to be an entire frame. I want it to be edge by edge, edge to edge, edge to edge, edge to edge. And then also I want to point out that I still have that red motivated light. One thing that I maintained throughout this entire video is noting where the light is and in real life where would this light still show up. And also outside of real life is even if the light wouldn't actually show up there, it still makes sense to have it show up there because I've placed it in different settings and scenarios and placements that it could make sense for the viewer to still have some red light, because remember it was back there to the left, so where else would it be if this was actually scenario? It was back there to the left. But I actually moved it a lot closer because only reason I moved it a lot closer is because like it wasn't as powerful. But in a scenario like this, that red light wouldn't have to have been moved. Like if it was actual like film set, the light wouldn't have been moved and it would have been a motivated light, and then they would have had an actual red powerful light that they would move around because they wouldn't, that's normally how it like would go. But in this scenario, use what you got. So let's continue. More placements. I loved how I was moving this around. I love how I was moving the clothing. Cool. All right, we're thinking, walk away. Perfect. We cut directly into it. Now this, I want to point out my specific framing that I chose with this specific piece. Now, obviously, I did this all in terms of like myself, like I was the only character. So I really wanted it to be a certain type of separation. Think of it like your parent comes in, barges in your room, or shoot, your sister or a sibling, and you're on one entire side and they're on an entire another side. That's what I really want it to be, but also have a conversation. So the dialogue is going in a diagonal. But also, it also worked in terms of effects, because I didn't want to have like a ton of huge effects for this specific one. So this worked in that sense. So also the framing is, I really wanted to have like my eyes of the left character reach that first horizontal line. And then I wanted it to be kind of an over the shoulder, but also show that there's a person that is talking and show some movement and stuff. So yeah, that's the main drive there, or the main, ideal. So and then as I walk off, I wanted to just kind of like cover the screen. That was my visual cinematic breakdown. And if you'd like to see the audio breakdown, then feel free to head on to my page and check that out. But if you also want to just see the video within itself, it'll be on all social media platforms, just like this one is.